any excuse to wear the ears in a video. So I've seen a lot of videos that compare Walt Disney World to Disneyland, or that compare Disneyland to Disneyland Paris. Now, what I haven't seen, I mean, there's probably some out there. What I haven't seen is a video comparing Disneyland California to Disneyland Paris, and then both to Disney World. So as someone who has visited all three, Paris, Anaheim and Orlando, I thought I'd film a video where we discuss the differences between all three parks. Basically, I've decided that I want to visit all the Disney parks. So obviously I've already been to Paris, Anaheim and Orlando, and next on the list is Tokyo, Hong Kong and Shanghai. I actually applied online to work for Hong Kong, but I'm 17, so I feel like I'm a bit blurry. That'll do. I went to Anaheim in 2017, Paris in 2018 and Orlando in 2019. So hopefully that's fresh enough in my mind. Some part of me wants to say I'm more familiar with Paris because I've been there more times, but I have spent more days in the Disney parks in Florida, because when you go to Florida you go for 2 weeks. I don't actually know which park I've spent more time in, but I feel like I feel like if I was going to tell you which park I'm most familiar with, it would be Disneyland Paris. So first of all, I'm going to talk about the fast pass system. So whether you have or haven't been to Disneyland, I'm just going to explain it to you as if you haven't. So you have these little booths that are next to the ride, and you will queue up and they'll print you a ticket that says come back at this time to get on the ride. So that's really useful. So that system worked in all three parks as far as I'm aware, but recently they had it changed so you can do it online first. So you just download the Walt Disney World app or the Walt Disneyland app. You download the app for the specific park you're going to, and you can pick in advance which fast passes you want. Now, I don't know if this has changed for all the parks, but when we went last year to Florida, you could book your fast passes months in advance. And the problem with that is that people will buy fast passes for the good rides like months in advance, and it's just, you know what I mean? I just personally think it should be a day thing. Like, oh, okay, well today I want to go on this, because how are you supposed to know what ride you fancy going on? Yes, so that's the fast pass system at Disneyland, and I wish more theme parks did that, not gonna lie, because I feel like that's just, it's more efficient. You queue, you get your ticket, it says come back at this time and you'll be on the ride. I don't know why more theme parks don't do it, because, you know, maybe money, maybe other theme parks are struggling. So in both Disneyland Anaheim and Disneyland Paris, you call the main park, you know, the one with the castle, you just call that Disneyland. However, in Florida, they'll call that park Magic Kingdom, so you might hear me interchanging between the two. In California, you just have Disneyland or Magic Kingdom, the main park, and California Adventure. It has the Ferris wheel and it has the ride California Screaming, and there's other rides it has as well, but they are the two parks in Disneyland California. So you have, in Paris, you have Disneyland, which is Magic Kingdom, and Walt Disney Studios, which is pretty much the same as Hollywood Studios in Florida. And although some of the rides in California Adventure are similar to the ones you'd get in Walt Disney Studios in Paris, Walt Disney Studios in Paris is pretty much Hollywood Studios from Walt Disney World, meaning it has the rides like Tower of Terror and Aerosmith. Okay, so there are obviously some rides that cross over into all of the parks, such as It's a Small World, Pirates of the Caribbean, Star Tours. In Florida, the layout for the park is you have six parks in Florida. You have Magic Kingdom, Hollywood Studios, Epcot, Animal Kingdom, and the two water parks, which I can't remember the names of. So Main Street USA, which is the street that you take leading up to the big castle, is the same in all three parks. However, the castles are different. I'm not going to lie to you. Disneyland Anaheim's castle looks rather pathetic next to Disneyland Paris's castle. But that being said, I know that Disneyland Anaheim was built in this tiny little area and they don't have much space to do things and change things and build things up, which is why a lot of the rides are smaller and in more confined spaces. Oh, okay, no, I've got it wrong. So Sleeping Beauty's castle is the centerpiece of Disneyland Anaheim. Oh, they have Belle's castle. Supposedly they have Belle's castle in Disneyland Paris, which would make sense because it's set in France. Cinderella's castle is in Walt Disney World, Sleeping Beauty's castle is Disneyland Anaheim, and Belle's castle is Disneyland Paris, apparently. So obviously in Walt Disney World you have like 6 parks, so there's a lot more to do. Epcot and Animal Kingdom. and Animal Kingdom are exclusive to Walt Disney World. So, food. This is something I seriously did not notice until someone had pointed it out to me, an American had pointed it out to me. But they sell a lot more like healthy food in Disneyland Paris. And we don't do churros at all. Like, you can only get churros in the American parks. Or at least it's hard to find churros if they do sell them. They do crepes and very traditionally European things that I just thought were normal. I think it's, again, I just thought the food would be the same in all the parks, but actually there's like subtle differences that, like, this is Europe and this is the States. Now, the rides, the best part, my favourite part, well, not my favourite part of Disneyland, because I love all of Disneyland, but the rides. So, first of all, I'm going to start with Splash Mountain. Splash Mountain is obviously about to be renovated into a Princess and the Frog themed ride. Splash Mountain does not exist in Paris and it never has, and it's probably to do with the fact that Paris obviously opened in the 90s and Song of the South had been like pushed back into the Disney Vault before then, so they thought, why not? Maybe, I don't know. Differences between Land and World is actually in World you can sit side by side. There's like 2x2 on Splash Mountain, and then in Disneyland there's only one person per like thing. I don't know. I'm going to find pictures and I'm going to show you, which is kind of cool, kind of interesting. I love Splash Mountain. It is one of my favourite rides, and I'm really sad to see it go, but I'm also really excited to see it be reimagined as Princess and the Frog, because I think that is going to be so dope. Friends on the other side, are you ready? Like, it's like a log flume, if that's what we call them in the UK. I don't actually know what they call them in America. I bet they just call them all Splash Mountain low-key, and they're just whatever part. They're like, oh, it's like Splash Mountain. In Land, I think there's 7 drops, and in World, I think there's 8, but I could be wrong. So It's a Small World is essentially the same ride in all of the parks. However, in Disney World, the queue is all inside, and it's kind of just like, you're just queuing up for a ride. And I love the outside and the surrounding areas of It's a Small World in Paris. We've always taken photos there just because it's like, it really hypes it up. It's like, whoa. And also you can see some of the princesses that will be queuing up kind of with you if you are queuing up for Small World in Paris, which is kind of cool. I think that's really cool. Anaheim, I think it also has like a big, this is It's a Small World outside queue. I feel like in World it's really easy to miss, which is a shame, because It's a Small World was my favourite ride as a child. It didn't receive the respect I thought it deserved. Space Mountain. If you are an American who's never been to Disneyland Paris, Space Mountain is not the same ride as Space Mountain in the American parks. Space Mountain in Disneyland Paris is the most elite thing you will ever experience. In Disneyland Paris, Space Mountain is a thrill ride. It's really good. Really good. Before I hype up that Space Mountain, I'm going to talk about the Space Mountains in the USA parks, because they were really anticlimactic for me, because I was really excited to go on what I know as Space Mountain, to just go on like a children's roller coaster. I am really thoroughly let down. The difference is, in the American parks, it's just a roller coaster. It's just like it's a space themed roller coaster. You know how roller coasters have that thing where they take you up and they're like, in Paris they have you there ready to go up, and instead of going up, they literally shoot you up, so you just go straight. And it's such a weird sensation that I hadn't experienced in a roller coaster before. Like, that's how they start it, and I think it's awesome. Also, the one in Paris goes upside down, twists, you know what I mean? Like, it's a real thrill roller coaster, and it's just such a disappointment in the USA parks. Like, if you've only ever been on Hyperspace Mountain version 2, don't bother in there. Unless it's nostalgic for you, you will be let down. I know a lot of American people that love Space Mountain because it's like a nostalgic thing, but it's not a thrill ride for people that are used to the one in Paris. Aerosmith, I think, was available in all 3 parks. It's pretty much the same ride. It's just a thrill roller coaster. For people that haven't been to Paris, Aerosmith and Space Mountain are like comparable in Paris, whereas obviously they aren't. It's all in the same league in the USA parks. One of my favourite rides in Disneyland Paris you can only find in Disneyland Paris, which is kind of upsetting, but it kind of makes sense. It is the Ratatoullie ride, and it is a virtual reality journey through the kitchen in Ratatoullie. I don't like to say that I like Ratatoullie is my favourite movie, or that I'm obsessed with it, but I do have to say that I have watched it over 8 times since lockdown. Like, I stopped counting after 8. I could not count. Like, I've watched it a lot. I think I could quote it. But anyway, that's a Paris exclusive ride because obviously the movie is set in Paris. They have a Gusto's restaurant right next to the ride that you kind of ride past. It's really good. I really liked it. But I do think it was for its time. Like I think it came out in 2013 or 14. But at the time that was the first like really good quality virtual reality ride that I'd ever been on. Now they have the ones in like Universal Studios, the Harry Potter ride, and it's all very convincing. But I really did like the Ratatouille ride. I think it's amazing. You can only find in Paris. Tower of Terror is another one of my favourite rides. Like when I was little, and I mean actually little, like 2008, when I was 6 years old I went on the Tower of Terror, which I think there's height restrictions on it now. I'm pretty sure there's height restrictions that I would not have been allowed on it. But back in the day, back in 2008, I was allowed on the Tower of Terror, and it used to scare me a little bit, but I really did like the drop tower sensation. And what I did like most about this one in comparison to like any drop tower you get in the UK is that it went down and then it went up again and then it went down and then up again, and then, you know, it throws you about the Tower of Terror. Whereas in the UK, you're out in the open and you just go up and you just drop. It's just one drop, which is cool. I still like them. But the other thing is you're less scared of like anticipation in the Tower of Terror than any other one because you're hidden. It's in an actual building, so you can't see how high you are until they open the window and you're like, oh goodness me, which I think is really cool. So when I went to Anaheim, they'd reimagined Tower of Terror to be the Guardians of the Galaxy ride, which I thought was such a good idea because I am such a Marvel fanatic. Like I adore Marvel. Like I have I have a wall. Why am I so tanned and like? Tower of Terror to be Guardians of the Galaxy theme, which I thought was amazing because I love Guardians of the Galaxy, and the music just it's just feel good music, isn't it? But it just felt, there was something about it being Guardians of the Galaxy theme that felt good. I was like, oh, I'm listening to some bangers here. I was just like, yeah, I'm listening to some right bangers whilst that is. They did not change the Tower of Terror in Paris nor Orlando. I'm not sure if they're scheduled to or not, but I do think it was the best idea they've ever had. Okay, so in the Tower of Terror in Disney World, in the Tower of Terror ride, you sit down and they like take you back and they kind of take you on a journey before they sit you in the place where they're going to drop you. And in Disneyland Paris, they don't do that. You don't really get a backstory, you just get dropped. What is the most interesting thing about Disney World is that each time you go on the ride, they change whether they go up first or down first, which is really cool because then you're genuinely anticipating, like, are they going to shoot me up or are they going to drop me off straight away? You know what I mean? It's really quite cool. So in Disney's Epcot, in Disney World, there's a ride called Test Track where you get to design your own car and ride it, and it tells you like how well your car did, and it's really cool. And you go really fast. I know a lot about speeding. I failed my first driving test for speeding. It's okay, I passed second time. And obviously exclusive to Epcot. However, there is a ride in Disneyland Anaheim, which is the Cars. It's Cars themed, and it's essentially the same ride. I just don't think you have the process of like, oh, you're designing your own car. It's just you are on the same track, pretty much. So don't feel like you're missing out. Star Tours is really quite a naff ride thinking about it. I haven't made any alterations to it because everyone loves it, because it's a classic. Like, Star Tours is the only reason I knew that I was going to like Star Wars, the movies, before I watched them. I don't know. But either way, Star Tours is pretty much the same in all three parks. They haven't, I don't think they've renovated it to make it any more like new, because it's like Star Wars. You've got to keep it how it was in the 70s. Authentic! So anyway, yeah, that's a ride that you can go on in all three parks because it's elite. Pirates of the Caribbean. I keep saying that they're one of my favourites, but that's just because I really like Disneyland. I like all the rides in Disneyland because Disneyland is really cool. But Pirates of the Caribbean is like a nostalgic, classic ride. You have to like Pirates of the Caribbean. So in Disneyland Anaheim, it's obviously the original Pirates of the Caribbean, and I feel like Paris made a direct like copy of that. But in World, it's actually a lot shorter than in both. I can't remember the full story as to why that is, but I think it's because it was a last minute replacement, people were sad like, oh, where's the Pirates of the Caribbean ride, when they went to Walt Disney World. So it was like a last minute thing that they were doing to replace a ride that kind of failed, I think. I can't really remember the exact story, but it was something along those lines. I really want to go to Disneyland right now. Big Thunder Mountain is a ride you can get in all 3 parks as well, which I believe are pretty much identical. Ooh, are we ready for this one? The Indiana Jones ride. Much like Space Mountain, I was very upset to see that the Indiana Jones ride in Anaheim and in Florida was completely different to the one in Paris. Like, they're not even the same ride, they're just called the same thing. Disneyland Paris, the Indiana Jones ride is a thrill ride, which is a roller coaster in Disneyland Paris. And in Anaheim and Florida, I believe it's just like one of those drive-through story ones with a bit of an edge, with a bit of a like, ah! Sometimes they call things the same thing and they're not the same thing, i.e. Indiana Jones ride and Space Mountain. So don't be fooled. The queue for Peter Pan's flight is a ridiculous length in all 3 parks. Those of you that haven't been to a Disneyland park at all, it is literally... So it's one of those magical, nostalgic rides that you're like, oh, I love Peter Pan's flight. But it just takes you through the story of Peter Pan in like a little carriage. But I think the reason it does so much better than the other ones like Snow White's ride or the Little Mermaid's ride is that you're kind of in the air. The carriage is like attached to the ceiling. You're in like a boat that doesn't touch the floor. You can fly, you can fly, you can fly, you can fly. I think that's what's exciting about it, I guess. If you're expecting it to be like a thrill ride or something exciting, it's not. It's just feel good. And the reason it does so well is because it's a classic. It's one of those classic rides like Pirates of the Caribbean and Small World. Neither of which are like, oh, thrill, but you don't go to Disney for thrill, do you? You don't, like, if you want to go to thrill, you go to Six Flags. Yeah. They do have a ride in Paris that they don't have in either of the USA parks called Crush's Coaster. I feel like there's something about Disneyland Paris that, like, there's more thrill rides in Paris than there is in the other ones. But Crush's Coaster is really cool. You're in like a spinning little carriage. It's like a roller coaster, but the thing moves. Crush's Coaster is really cool. I did really like it, but you only get it in Paris. The Haunted Mansion is really similar in all 3 parks. However, in one of the parks, I'm going to put it here when I find out, they actually change the theme of the Haunted Mansion during Halloween and they make it all The Nightmare Before Christmas, which is totally rare. I love the shows. The shows are what make Disneyland Paris different from all the other theme parks. Actually, no, not gonna lie, Universal Studios do some pretty banging shows. Fantasmic, you don't get in Paris. You don't get Fantasmic in Paris, which is kind of sad. Fantasmic is really cool. It's like a show that they do at the end of the night in Walt Disney World in Hollywood Studios. I wasn't aware of this, but apparently they do Fantasmic in Disneyland California as well, but I didn't see it, and apparently there's some big differences, but they don't do it in France, which is kind of sad because it's an amazing show. It's about like Mickey going on his like little mind adventures, and it's just really cool. It's really cool. In Walt Disney Studios or Hollywood Studios for Florida, you have the show where they show you all the special effects, and you know they have the cars. The show where they have the stunt, it's the stunt show where they have the special effects guys in the cars and they have people jumping off the roof and they have people being set on fire. Okay, yeah, so that goes for both. But what's different about Paris to the others is that Paris do their shows half French, half English. So if there's 2 characters, they'll have one of them speaks English, one of them speaks French.
Get ready, préparez-vous, Guardian of the Galaxy, dance off, avec la team Alpha, ici, et la team...
Yes, I do think what you just said is a brilliant idea, but I'm about to say this, and they'll say, yes, I do agree with what you just said, which was this. So it kind of works. You don't miss anything, but half of the shows are in French. In Anaheim, you have this big theatre where at the time I went to see Frozen on stage, and it's like Broadway style production that lasts an hour. So they do a quick summary of the show. I think they used to do Aladdin. So not gonna lie, I kind of feel like it's a little test centre for shows that they're gonna move to Broadway eventually. So I saw Frozen there. They're really good high quality Broadway style shows, but you don't get that in Paris. There's a show called like Annie Magique in Disneyland Paris that they no longer run, which is really sad because that was my favourite show as well when I was younger. I used to be like, oh, I'm going to see Annie Magique, but they don't do it anymore. So that is it, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this really, really long video. Bit of a mess, but I am very overly passionate about Disney, and I hope you got some use out of watching this video of me talking about the differences between Paris, Florida and Anaheim. I actually have these on my wall like that. You've probably seen them in pictures. I got these in 2008 from Disneyland Paris. I don't really know why I chose this one. Probably because I've always loved the colour pink and I've always loved being dramatic. These are like the original ears from the original park. These ones I just really liked and they're from Florida. I think I got them in Epcot. Walt Disney World is a lot, like it's a big amazing park. Animal Kingdom is really cool. Epcot is really cool and you don't get those parks in the other places, so I don't know, when I think of Disney I think of Paris. Actually no, when I think of Disney I just think of Main Street USA, which happens in all of them, so think what you will. I'm signing off. It was said that you would destroy this and not join them. Peace out.